We have few properties or laws about exponents, but before we get to that, let's make sure you know what exponents are. When I write 5 to the third, what does that mean?
5 times 5 times 5.
How many times?
3 times.
3 times, very good. Oh, 3 times. 5 times 5 times 5, 3 times. What's 5 times 5? 25 times 5, that's 125. When I write 2 to the 7th, that's 2 times 2, how many times? 7 times. Two times 2, 4, times 2, 8, times 2, 16, times 2, 32, times 2, 64, times 2, 128. Three to the fourth. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3, 9. Times 3, 27. Times 3, 81. 4 to the 4. It's 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4, 16 times 4, 64 times 4, 256. I can test these on my calculator there. Lucky I have a calculator that has a power button on it. See if we did them right. This is my power button, that little upside down V. So I can write 5 to the power of 3 equals 125. 2 to the power of 7 equals 128. 3 to the power of 4 equals 81. 4 to the power of 4 equals 256. So we did them right. Now, there's a few cases where I don't know what the answer to that. And one of them, I'll make all the laws here actually in blue color. And that is, so let me write this as a law, x to the power of n. What that means is x times x times x times x, how many times? N times. You multiply x by itself how many times? Whatever that number is. X could be any number. So that's the first law of exponents. You can see that right here. So if I give you, for example, 5 to the 1, what's 5 to the 1? 5. What is x to the 1? X. Very good. What is x to the 4 means?
X times x times x times x.
How many times?
4 times.
4 times. Good. What is y to the 3? Y times y times y. Good. Let me have fun with this. What's negative x squared?
X times negative x.
What is it?
X times negative x.
Why x? Why not negative x?
Because the negative x is in parentheses.
When somebody is squared, when something is squared, that means multiply it by itself. What's inside the parentheses is negative x. And negative times a negative, the result is what? Positive, so you end up with what? Positive x squared. If that was negative x squared, what is that equal to? That's a little bit different. In this case, only the x is being squared, not the minus. So the minus is sitting outside. And what is x squared? It's x times x. So the net result is what? Negative x squared. X times x is x squared, and the minus sitting in the front. So if you have a parentheses versus no parentheses, a big difference. Just like if I wrote negative 5 squared, and I'll show you that on the calculator. When you look at that, only the 5 is being squared, not the minus. So the minus is sitting in the front. And what is 5 squared? 5 times 5. But if I write negative 5 squared, that's a negative 5 times a negative 5, which is what? Positive 25. Let's see if my calculator is smart enough to know that. Can you see it? Yep. Negative 5, notice there's no parentheses here, squared. According to my calculation, it should be negative 25. And we got negative 25. Clear that. Let's put it in parentheses now. What about negative 5, the whole thing squared? Again, based on my calculation here, if I'm right, that should be plus 25. And that's what the calculator has given me. So when there is no parentheses, that means only the 5 is squared, not the minus sign. When you have the parentheses, that means the whole thing is squared. Okay, now we're going to go to property or law number 2. This is law number 1. The second law, I'll make it in blue here. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Any number raised to the 0 power is 1, except 0. Can't be 0. So 5 to the 0 power is what? 1. Test it again. Let's see if that property is correct. 5 to the 0. 1. 3.5 to the 0 power should be what? 1. 3.5 to the power of 0. 1. Minus 6, the whole thing to the 0 power. That should be a 1. Minus 6 to the power of 0. 1. Negative 2/3 to the 0 power. That should be a 1. Negative 2/3 to the power of 0. Let me hit the equal sign. 1. Except 0 to 0. That's not a 1. That's undefined. Does not exist. That's why this one says anything to the 0 power is 1 except 0 to the 0 power. Let me try that 0 to the 0 power. It should give me an error on my calculator. 0 to 0, domain error. Can't be done. Undefined. No solution. So what is x to the 0? I screwed up. I meant to make all the properties in blue and all the examples in black, but I forgot. X to the 0 is what?
1.
1. I'm usually not that neat, but try to be neat. It's too late because the video you're going to see it first in blue there. But at least if you print the notes in color, okay, here we go. Oh, the blue line. X to the 0 is 1. What about negative a to the 0? Try again. Negative 1. Why? Because only a is raised to the 0 power, assuming a is not 0. Only a is raised to the 0 power. So there's the minus, and what is this? That's a 1. 6x squared y plus 3 to the 0 power. As long as the inside is not 0, as long as this is not 0, what's the answer? 1. Anything to the 0 power is always a 1, as long as not 0. Four x to the 0. What do you think?
1x? 5.
5. I heard 1, 1x. The 1x is a different one. We'll ignore that. And a 5. Why 1? Leon, he said 1. Because anything to the 0 power is 1, right? Jamie, you said 5. Why 5?
Because I think just x is to the 0 power.
Okay, if you think just x to the 0 power, so what's this answer to this?
That's 1.
1. And that's a multiplication, not addition.
4.
So 4 times 1, then your answer should have been 4. And actually, Jamie is correct. Only x is raised to the 0 power, not the whole thing. Leoni assumed the whole thing is to the 0. If they want the whole thing to the 0 power, it will be written like this. That is a 1.
Okay, I got it.
This one is actually x to the 0. That's a 1. 1 times the 4, that's the 4. So that's law number 2. Anything raised to the 0 power is always a 1 except 0. Let's look at rule number 3. It's called the product rule, multiplications.
That would be considered multiplication, right?
The 4x to the 0,
Yep.
that's a multiplication 4 times.
Okay.
Yeah. If there is no operations, always multiplications. The next rule says if you're multiplying two numbers with the same base, a to the n times a to the m, the answer is a to the n plus m. You add the exponent. Let's see why. Let's look at the math behind it. If I have 2 to the 3rd times 2 to the 4th, it's not 2 to the 12, it's 2 to the 7. Why? Well, what is 2 to the 3rd? Isn't that 2 times 2 times 2? What's 2 to the 4th? It's 2 times 2. How many 2's? 4. And you're multiplying them. So let's count how many 2's do we have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 2 to the 7th. 7. And the only way to get 7, it's you add the 3 to the 4, and that's where the 7 came from. So when you multiply, you add your exponent. The key to that, the bases have to be the same. If the bases are different, you are in trouble. If they said to you, what is 2 to the 3rd times 3 to the 2nd? You cannot combine them. The bases are different. So what can you do if you see this on the quiz or the homework? You got to find the answer to each one. What is 2 to the 3rd?
12.
Try again. 2 to the 3rd.
Oh, 8.
8. 2 times 2 times 2, 3 times. What is 3 squared? 3 times 3, twice. That's a 9. 8 times 9, which is what? 72.
That's gonna get confusing.
So if the base are different, you can never combine them together. And they will not let you leave the answer like this. They'll probably go to that one, the 72. But if I get 2 to the third times 2 to the fifth, the base are the same. Keep the base, and what do you do with the exponents?
Combine.
Add them. 3 plus 5?
8.
8. 3 to the fourth times 3 to the negative 2. We didn't even discuss negative exponents yet, but that's okay. 3 to the power of 2. Why 2? Because you add these two numbers. What is 4 plus a negative 2?
2.
2. Five to 1.3 the power times 5 to the power of 2.4. 5 to what power?
3.7.
3.7. You add the 1.3 to 2.4. 7 to the 1/2 times 7 to the 1/3.
Don't wait on mini.
7 to what? 1/2 plus 1/3. Go to the side and add these two numbers. Correct. First, gotta find the LCD, which is what? 6. Which means I gotta multiply this by 3 to make it 6. I gotta multiply this one by 2 to make it 6. That's 3 over 6 plus 2 over 6, which is what? 5 over 6. So the answer becomes 7 to the power of 5 over 6. Let's put x's. What's x to the fourth times x to the third?
X to the 7.
X to the 7. I'll put a twist here. What is 2x to the fifth times 3x to the ninth?
5x to the 14th.
What is it?
5x to the 14th.
Why 5?
Don't you combine the
Well, you're multiplying four things. When you look at 2x to the fifth, what does that mean? It means 2 times x to the fifth, right? What does 3x to the 9 means? 3 times x to the 9, right? But let me take the 3, put it in the front. Doesn't matter where you put them. You're multiplying four things. Who cares where you put them?
So it'd be 6x to the 14.
3 times 2, 6. Yep. X to what power? 5 plus 9? 14. So you multiply the numbers but add the exponents. Multiply the numbers and add the exponents. And that's the reason why you multiply the numbers.
positive 8 to the 6.
So a negative 4 times a negative 2, that's 8. X to what power?
6.
6. Add the exponents. Very good. Put another twist here. 2x to the 0 times 3x to the fourth. So I put two properties into one. Why 6? Why not 3?
Because 2 times 3 is 6.
Okay. She said 2 times 3, which is what? 6? And what do you do with the exponents? Add them. What's 0 plus 4? 4. I have to admit, I wasn't thinking along those lines. I was in my head looking at this, 2x to the 0. X to the 0 is what? 1. 2 times 1? 2. So I would have done that 2 times 3x to the 4th, which the answer is still going to be what? 6x to the 4th. But I like your way actually better. And I wasn't thinking multiply the numbers and add the exponents. I was trying to simplify this first, then multiply it. But either way, my answer will be the same. The next property, we got 2 more properties to look at. So we did the multiplication. What about when you have division? I'll make it blue again. X to the n over x to the m. When you have division, what do? You subtract the exponent. N minus m. X to the 4th divided by x to the 3rd. X to what power? Yep, 4 minus 3, which is 1, right? We never put the 1. Don't put the 1. If you put it, they probably mark it wrong. Y to the 6 over y, bless you, to the minus 2.
Y to the 8th power.
Y, subtract the exponent, the top minus the bottom, minus a minus 2. What's minus a minus 2? Positive. Good. Negative 9 to the 6 over negative 9 to the 4th. That's a 9. Looks like an A, but that's a 9. Negative 9 what?
2.
Second. 6 minus 4, which is 2. And they probably want you to simplify it here. If they ask you to simplify it, that's negative 9 times a negative 9, which is what? Positive 81.
So if the minus sign was, okay, so if it wasn't in parentheses, it would still be negative.
If it was in parentheses and the minus is sitting, they cancel each other out. The question, what happens if the problem was like this? Right? If the question was like that, well, this is just a minus here and a minus there. What's a minus over a minus?
Positive.
That's a positive. So these two will cancel each other out. So what's left?
So it wouldn't matter.
9 6 over 9 to the 4th power, which is 9 squared. In this case, just happens also to be 81. So I'll give you something along those lines. If you have 2x, well, let's make it 12x to the 6 over 4x to the 3rd. It's one fraction, right? There's nothing wrong with rewriting this 12 over 4 times x to the 6 over x to the third. If you remember in fraction, when you multiply the top times the top, the bottom times the bottom. So you end up with this on the bottom, this on the top. So I decided to do it backward here. Can you simplify 12 over 4?
3.
That's a 3. X to what power?
1/3.
Subtract 6 minus 3, which is the third. Negative 10 y to the 7th. Let me just go crazy with this. X to the 4th over 2 y to the negative 3 x to the 1. Again, you can rewrite that as 3 separate fractions. What is negative 10 divided by 2? Negative 5. Y to what power?
4.
Try again. 10.
Right.
7 minus a negative 3. 7 minus a minus, that's a plus. 7 plus 3, which is what? 10. X to what power?
3.
4 minus the 1, 3. One more here. M to the third over m to the fifth. M to what power?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. And here is the problem. Most math books don't like to see negative exponents. So that's the next property. When you have negative exponents, what do you do with them? So let's look. So this is fine for now till we cover the next law, and I'm going to put it on the next page now. The next law of exponents is negative exponents. If you have a to the negative n, we don't like to see negative power, you can change it to positive by going 1 over a to the n. That's the negative exponent law. And that's really your last law here.
So do we just change it to a positive?
Yep, so when I had m to the 6 over m to the 8, the answer becomes what?
Negative 2.
M to the negative 2. Since we don't like to see negative exponents, we take that, we make it what? 1 over m to the power of 2.
Do we have to write it like that?
Yep. Positive. They'll tell you to write the answer using positive exponents only. So this becomes m to the power of 2. X to the third over 5x to the 5. Let's simplify that again. It's 15 over 5 times what? X to the third over x to the fifth. Taking that extra step is very helpful to see you divide these numbers. What's 15 over 5? 3. And x to what power?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. Now we've got to be careful. Can't use negative exponent. But out of these two, which one is raised to the negative 2? Not all of them. Not both of these.
X.
Only the x. So the 3 is still sitting in the front. X to the minus 2 is what? 1 over x to the second. The 3 is 3 over what?
1.
1. How do you multiply fractions? The top times the top. The bottom times the bottom. What's 3 times 1? 3. 1 times x squared, x squared. To me, that's a lot of steps here. So when I have negative exponents, I use cross the line, change the sign. Cross the line, change the sign. What does that mean? Let me take that answer, 3x to the minus 2. I make it over 1. It's a fraction. Over 1. Anytime I have a negative exponent, if it's on the top, I'm going to move it to the bottom. If it's on the bottom, I'm going to bring it to the top. When it's on the bottom, you bring it down, you're crossing that line. And when you cross that line, what are you supposed to do? Change the sign of the exponent, so it becomes 3 over x squared. So I can do that in one step. Instead of going, well, x to the minus 2 means 1 over x, then multiply the fractions. I go, oh, that's a negative exponent in the top, bring it to the bottom. If it's on the bottom, bring it to the top. A lot of people, like I gave some problems early, and I'll show you. I'll wait till you finish writing. I'm wound up. I've been up since 3.
Why?
I don't sleep.
Is it Red Sox are playing?
Oh no. A to the 5th over a to the negative 2. We said the answer is what? Since you have division, what do you do with the exponents? Subtract them. So 5 minus a negative 2, which is what? 5 to the plus 2, which is a to the 7. If you are not a fan of negative exponents, the same problem. Cross the line, change the sign. I go, you know what? I don't like negative exponents. I don't like to subtract a negative number. So there's a negative exponent. Let me bring it to the top. When you bring it to the top, you're crossing the line, it becomes what? This problem becomes a to the 5th times a to what power? 2. And when you multiply, what do you do with the exponents? Don't you add them?
Yep.
A to the power of 5 plus 2, which is a to the 7. So a lot of people who are not fan of negative exponents, that's what they do. We will get crazy with negative and positive exponents. Right now your book is just going over the properties just to make sure you understand them. Like they might give you a problem like this. Negative 3y to the minus 1. They go, what is that? Now, it's not a fraction. You can make it a fraction if you want to. Now, again, who is raised to the power of negative 1?
3 and y?
Just the 3y, not the minus, right? The minus still there. So you can take this from the top, bring it to the bottom, becomes what? 3y to the 1. When you have a minus, minus means nothing. Minus what? Has to be a number there. What do you think that number is? 1. Because anything to the 1 power, it's the number itself. So 3y to 1, just 3y. If I see negative 4 to the negative 2, I'll say make it over 1. Again, The whole thing raised to the negative 2. I don't like negative exponents. That's 1 over negative 4 squared. Change the exponents from negative to positive when you bring it down. What is minus 4 squared? That's minus 4 times a minus 4. A minus times a minus is what? Positive. And 4 times 4? 16. 116.